And I'm from the Swedish Transport Administration, a long and small country up in the north of Europe. But I discovered here, I have met with some of your colleagues here today, and there is a lot of things in common. And I enjoyed the discussion of the previous speaker, because the topics you are discussing is the same that we are discussing. This, the air quality, the climate. For my presentation, I will focus on climate. And first of all, electric road system is a fairly new term. And what we interpret with the electric road system is basically charging the vehicle whilst driving. You don't need to stop and charge. You don't need to carry around heavy batteries. You can basically have unlimited electric range. It is also discussed as in-motion charging or dynamic transfer of electricity. And the reason why the Swedish Transport Administration in Sweden is interested in the electric road system is the climate law that the Swedish government decided up in 2017. And that law have two important dates. By 2030, the emissions from the transport sector should be reduced with 70% compared to 2010. And by 2045, there should be no net emissions of CO2 in the society as a whole. And this is a significant challenge. And Sweden is pretty well prepared here, because our power system is almost CO2 neutral. It's hydropower, it's biopower, wind, and some nuclear. However, the transport sector is fully oil dependent. As you can see here, the black line shows the Swedish transport sector's emission of CO2, the historic one. The gray bar going slightly upwards is the prognosis if nothing happens, business as usual. However, we already have some measures in place, like renewable energy. About 20% of the fuel used in Sweden is renewable. But we also have targets on electric drive, we have energy efficiency, etc. So if all those measures are included, you can see the yellow line going downwards. However, that is far from the green one, which is the goal or the climate law. And electric road system is one way to actually getting closer to that target. But to connect again to the previous speaker, whilst going over from fossil petrol and diesel and combustion engines to electric drive, you also get additional benefit than just climate. Like you have improvement in air quality, you have improvement in energy efficiency, as the electric drive is so much better than the combustion engine, but also energy security. You are not dependent on a lot of imported fossil fuel. And if we then go, how are we going to do this? About a year ago, we actually got a governmental assignment which ended up in this roadmap, how to actually implement, or first of all, how to investigate if electric road is something for the transport sector, and then how to implement it. And there's four major parts of this roadmap. First of all, we must solve the question of how to finance this infrastructure. Who will own it? And in that, we also have some legal aspects. Because now we are connecting the electric system with the road system, two systems that have been developed fairly much in parallel. Secondly, there are a few technologies already available on the electric road systems. However, they are quite new and immature. So we also have to, meet each technology at its level of development and help them to increase the maturity. Once that is done, we also need to look on the system as a whole, because you have to have access control, energy metering, billing of energy, etc. And that we think can be done, what we call in a big pilot. I will come back to that later. And the last part is to actually create a long-term deployment plan. If we look on the business models or the funding and the ownership, there is a huge difference now when we talk about infrastructure, road infrastructure, that normally you have what we can see within the blue square here. That is building railroads, building roads. It's basically the road owner and some construction company. But now, when we're talking about electric roads, we also need to involve all other actors in that system, and they must find which role they have in this rollout of the new system. And we think that the vehicle manufacturers and the users are quite important to get on board at a fairly early stage. Going then forward on this, getting to mature this system, Sweden already have 2 electric road systems out on the public roads. One in the mid-size of Sweden with an overhead catenary, just as you see at the trams and the trains. Quite old technology, have never been used on the road before. And that was inaugurated in 2016. And the second one is outside the airport of Arlanda, and there's an electric rail in the ground, and that was inaugurated last year. However, we hope to have additional technologies, and you can see them out on the side of the board here. One with an electric rail that you put on top of the road surface, one additional that you are putting into the road surface, and one extremely interesting technology, Electrion's inductive technology, actually a company here in Tel Aviv. So we think that's extremely interesting to see the potential of that one. All of the technologies have their benefits and challenges. And as I said, it's important to let them mature and to meet them at their level of technology. Later this year, there will be a decision of if which of these 3, or maybe all of them, are being put forward to build on the public roads somewhere in Sweden. So my last slide here is basically just summing up our roadmap here. Right now we are working in parallel with the business models, with the demonstrators to have the technologies maturing, and now we're starting our work with this long pilot. And then we're talking about like 20 to 30 kilometers where you're actually going to use it for distributing real freight traffic, and it should be as commercial as possible in a quite, say, unmature technology development. And the last thing, which we hope to be able to present before 2022, is a large-scale deployment plan. And in Sweden, the Transport Administration is basically a fully state belonging to the government, and we get our infrastructure plan renewed every 4th year, and next time is 2022. And by that, then we need to have gathered as much knowledge as possible in order to make a good plan that makes sense for the public, for the private organizations, and also for the state. And hopefully we will not be doing this alone. One of the reasons for being here is to talk with Electrion about their technology, but also talk with some members of the Ministry of Energy and Transport, etc., just to share knowledge and work together. So I think I stop there.